Deputy Mark MacSharry.
Thanks very much, Alaska Hirlock, Alaska Cancorla, and take the opportunity to wish the Minister well, and particularly, as Minister Noon been there for some time, Minister Murphy, who I had the pleasure of working with on the banking inquiry. I wish him well. I'm sure he has a long career ahead in the Department of Loaves and Fishes. I just ask that when you decide who gets fed and who's starved, that you be very careful about doing it, and perhaps listen to everybody in the House when you're making those difficult decisions. Last week at private members, or perhaps in the vote afterwards, Deputy John Deasy made a point which I think it's worth noting in the House, and I know Alaska Cancorla that you might bring it to the attention of the Cancorla, and that perhaps in deliberations on Dáil reform it would be considered. As we all know in these Houses, and as somebody who spent quite a few years in the Shannon, the practice is the same. Private members' motions have no statutory basis, they have no standing, and indeed if we passed a motion this evening to travel to the moon by the end of August, the Minister responsible need only note it and put it into the room in which these motions are duly stored. And I think it would be of benefit to the people outside who often, when a motion is passed like this one will be this evening, because clearly we have the numbers, there will be genuine expectation from the public at large that something along the lines of the proposals within the document brought forward here tonight, and within the motion and the proposals being advocated by members, will in fact come into play. Now, of course, in reality we know that's not the case, and I think that as we are undertaking Dáil reform and agreeing no new procedures in the era of new politics, I think in the interest of the public's peace of mind and confidence in our system, I think if we're going to have private members' motions, we must give them more of a statutory basis, more of a chance to become reality than motions that are often, and so many of us would be familiar with those that were often discussed and passed at county councils and local authorities throughout the country. On the issue of insurance, and many of the key points and proposals that we have been made clear already in the debate, I'd like to specifically talk in the context of rural Ireland. Deputy Eugene Murphy mentioned it there slightly. We don't have public transportation in the context of your own county and city, Minister Limerick, or indeed Minister Murphy here in Dublin, with the benefits of Lewis, the benefit of Dart, the benefit of regular bus services, late-night bus services, the availability of taxis and so on. So car insurance being obligatory in this country means that any young person who's starting off with the potential to raise a loan through the credit union or savings or whatever else to purchase a car to get around, they must insure their cars, they must insure their vehicles, they must be compliant with those regulations. And when you consider the increases over the last 2 years in particular, as you've heard already, 34% in the last year, according to the Central Statistics Office, and some 30% in the year before that. It's simply unsustainable in this society for people in rural Ireland to get themselves around when they're being effectively priced out of the market. Clearly, there's been, in the economic downturn, effects in the insurance industry with the exit of Quinn, Setanta, and indeed the financial figures of other companies would seem to be very much under pressure. But notwithstanding that, they can't just approach the most vulnerable in society, effectively, those who absolutely need transportation and as a result insurance to get around. They can't focus on them to try and get the quick buck and get back to profitability. We've heard from others about the Motor Insurance Advisory Board and the relative success of that in the 1990s over the 7-year period, where they managed to have a reduction in the region of 40% during that period. Well, we've seen, once we took down the fence to the hen house, the foxes ran ragged, and that's what they're doing again, in effect, where over a 2-year period they have gazumped the savings that were made as a result of the interventions of the Motor Insurance Advisory Board in the 1990s, and now we have some 60% of an increase. That's not sustainable, it's not fair, and indeed it's time to put that fence back up, as the motion proposes, to re-establish the Motor Insurance Advisory Board, to give it the resources that it requires, and more importantly than that, give it a cross-departmental reach and influence to introduce the sort of regulations and the sort of oversight that's required to ensure that people get value for money. But I have a personal view, which isn't mentioned in the motion, that we must focus very much so on those people who absolutely depend on transport by owning their own car in the many, many rural areas and indeed the more provincial towns that, as I said, are not blessed with the same public transportation as you both ministers are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chairman.